Morning. Good morning. How you doing?
Almost a full 2 minutes there of the intro. I apologize, just leaving you there.
Oh, it's all right. I was just hanging out.
There's ideas that just flow through me for a minute, and I'm like, oh, let's get this done. Didn't have coffee, and then I'm good, and then I'm here. That works. Dom, do you say that you're a pretty prompt person? Are you an on-time guy?
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm like to a fault.
To a fault. What is the problem with that?
I'm one of those people that's like 15 minutes early to everything, and so when people are late, it's like they're really late in my mind. Like
Mm-hmm.
like I'm here 15 minutes early and they're 15 minutes late, so I've been waiting for 30 minutes. Like you can get stuff done in 30 minutes. So that's normally when you'll see me playing, doing stuff on my phone or texting or like I find stuff to do, so it's fine. But it does frustrate me
It's like a Bloody
a
Mary
little
I have.
bit when people are like routinely late because I'm routinely early.
Are you early for any reason in particular? Is this like a if you're on time, you're late kind of situation?
No, I just don't like the idea of like, setting up a meeting with someone and this is mostly like work stuff, but like setting up a meeting with someone and just not being there, like when I
Yeah.
said I was going to be there or something like that. So I just I tend to like give myself a little bit more buffer, I don't like stacking meeting after meeting after meeting because
Mm,
that make it hard, to be early or be on time, in my opinion, to each one of them.
hear you.
Yeah.
I definitely am someone who I will rush to wait, and then at the same time, depending on the moment, I might end up just kind of like pushing it to the last minute. It's always different. I know when Blaze was talking about his wife's mindset of getting to the airport with only like just enough time. Like they're
Yeah.
not going to leave without you. I know Blaze is a get there early kind of person. Who was I listening to recently? Macaulay Culkin's brother. What's his first name? If anyone
Oh,
remembers.
no idea.
9 seconds in my head. I am not going to remember. I don't think it's okay. But Macaulay Culkin's brother, who is also a pretty famous actor. He kind of a character actor, I think, in a lot of places, maybe even more than a character actor. But he was saying recently he was in an interview and I heard him saying that like the plane's not going to leave without you. You just show up. You just show up whenever you feel like going. And he was in the interview and I remember there was another actor who was sitting next to him and he's like looking at him like he's crazy.
Yeah.
Because it is crazy just to think like it's not going to leave without you. It's going to be there. You can show up whenever you want to. You know what? Because this was his point. He's like when you get to the airport, you just show them what flight you're on. And if you're running late, they'll rush you through. Like I was like, no, that's not how the world works. Like I don't. And so the person that he was being interviewed with, it was like I forget who it was. It was another famous younger actor. And he's like, no, that's like, no, like you are the reason everyone is having a hard time. And
Yeah.
he goes, but you're also probably taking like private flights. He's like, maybe. But he's like, I'm also just flying domestic sometimes. And like, I just show up when I want to. And you know what? If they're not going to leave without me, I was like, stop doing that. Who are you?
Yeah.
So that was my thought. But what are you working today? Kids at home? What's going on with this holiday Monday?
Yeah, so kids are at home. Um, I I'm still debating, so I'm going to stay here for the morning. The winds picked up again,
Hmm.
and I actually put my trash cans on the curb last night, so I'm a little worried that my garbage is spread throughout the neighborhood right now. So I'm
No.
not going to leave my wife to that chore. So after this, I will go on a walk slash trash
All
pickup.
right.
Um, and then I'm gonna wait for my team to wake up. Uh, if if my tile guys need me today, because we had made plans. We didn't schedule a meeting, but we had made plans that we would meet up today. But we did not remember that it was a holiday.
Oh.
So we're allowed to work in the city, but if he and his guys aren't showing up, then I won't show up. No, we'll call it a sick day. But I
Oh,
am ready to go if I need to.
okay. Well, I think that is more uh than possible. I was just trying to put something over here. Good. All
How
right, look,
about
we
you?
got this reading for today. Oh, thank you for asking. We don't rush. I I like to bring up topics. I like to talk about things, but I always feel as if I rush too quickly through them. So I'm always happy when someone slows it down. So for me today, kind of like Monday is usually like my admin day. It really is. It's like admin, get things set up. It's like scheduling, posts for social media, making sure that you're trying to stay somewhat relevant on all those fronts. So it is nothing crazy. Like this is a day I'll kind of like either do podcasts. We did a great podcast last week with Daniel Donaire, wonderful
Nice.
dad, head of community, not head of community. I had that wrong. He has an updated title. Forgetting it again right now. But Daniel Donaire, it was great to hear his story about how he, got into the VFriends community, and then into a job with VFriends itself. But also just a lot of the risks and where he came from as a dad was really cool. So Mondays is always kind of a podcast day, and I was really happy on last Monday. A lot of what we do right now, like why we're here and where we came from, was like doing interviews with other dads and just parents in the community too. So it was really nice to get back there.
Yeah.
And what I felt like though, I was really trying to I tried not to walk in with too much of an agenda in some of these conversations. But I think one thing that I was trying to do was like understand kind of like the inner workings of parents within the VFriends community, because a lot of these things are actually tied into, parenting and kids and stuff like that. So it's like, what are you seeing? What are you doing? And I feel as if I didn't get to ask those questions. That was like that next level. I always like to go like a little bit deeper with some of those questions. And I
Hmm.
think that there was just a lot that we were talking about. I was also trying not to take up too much of his time. He's a busy guy. So it was a great conversation. I would totally do like a round two, but I gotta get that posted, and we'll definitely do it. But it got me excited again to do some more of those dad interviews, because I think we all need to hear people's stories. And you know what? We're all so much more alike than we think, and I like
Yeah.
that. I always like that takeaway, because everyone, I think, feels like we are an individual, which we should be. We're all shiny, beautiful snowflakes, but at the same time, I think it's important to realize that the things that you're struggling with, someone else has gone through, or that they're going through right now. So it's always good.
Oh yeah.
Can
So the reading, the reading, the reading, the reading.
I get into a question with this one?
Hmm. Yeah.
Oh, actually, I put this question into the chat over here.
Oh yeah.
I'd love to hear this from people. Okay. So, January, all about making sure that we are leading by example, right? Being able to kind of bring up these children that we're not just proud of, but that are going to be, you know, confident in themselves, being a part of the world, not just letting everything pass them by. So we are setting that example for the kids. So my question is this: I'd love to hear from the couch, from the chat over here. But what is something that you started doing or stopped doing? So doing or stop doing to set an example for your kids. Has there been something that you recently did, Dom?
Me, yeah. I mean, you know. Uh, so I made a list of things that I want to do. It started with four things from a challenge from Josh, and then I just kind of expanded on it, and I've posted it every day basically. You know, how many of the things I've accomplished and how many of the things I've not accomplished. On days when I still post even on days when I don't fill the list. I went for a couple days or maybe a week getting everything off the list and trying
Mm-hmm.
really hard. And then I just realized that like some of those days when I just don't have enough time, I don't want to be just cramming in those last things at the end of the day. So
Mm-hmm.
I want my kids to see that like you can have goals to get everything done, but like you don't need to push yourself or hurt your time with others or anything like that, just to like cross things off a list. You know, like
Hmm.
you don't, it doesn't need to be forced. Um, you know, and so yeah, there's a lot of things like exercising, proper diet, getting a full tank of water in, expressing love and gratitude, reading, journaling. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff.
Question: at the end of the day, if you were to talk with your kids, by the end of the day, I mean, let's look into the future here. They're like, Dad, I remember that list of things that you had so much personal growth and health, all that kind of stuff too. Is there, and I don't want to be so much either or here, but do you hope that there's like one or two things from the list that they take away? Or do you think it's more important for them to take away the fact that dad created something, a focus and a list to complete things, but he didn't have the all or nothing mentality. He just kept moving forward. Because I think that a lot of times, just like you said, at the end of the day, you're cramming it in, and that becomes something that can become so hard for
Yeah.
you to finish. Now you're rushing through it. Do you think that your kids would do you think that you'd rather see your kids be able to kind of uh, be resilient and just show up every day to kind of complete some things on that list, or are there specific things on that list that you would want them to be able to take away? Like what would you most
Yeah,
want there?
I want them to take away the lessons. I want them to take away not the things, because my list is going to be different than your list, and our lists are going to be different than the lists for our kids. So it's more of that you should have, not necessarily have a list, but have something to work on with yourself, some version
Hmm.
of growth. Like, and it
Hmm.
doesn't have to be every day, month, or year, but like you should go through this. You should go through these seasons. I love that word that you like to use, of growth. Like there are plenty of times where you're not in a growth season, and you're like, look, I'm at a good place. I'm gonna ride this. I'm gonna ride this season right now with my kids, with my family. Like we're in, especially like newborn kids. Like newborn, when you have a newborn, it's a hard time to be in like a growth season for yourself, because
Hmm.
you're focused on, especially a firstborn. It's
Oh
like you're
yeah.
focused on what you have to do as a parent, what you made,
Hmm.
what you brought into this world, and
Yeah.
you're not focusing on growing, but you are actually growing. Um, so yeah, I want them to take away that, But yes,
I concur with all of it, because I definitely feel as if I want my kids just to see us being able to uh, not be content. This is something I struggle with a lot. Being content, not being content, because I think that there's a beauty in being content, but also growing. Like, I don't know what you call that. Is there a better word for that? Right? Is that just life? I don't want my kids to settle. I don't want my kids, and that's kind of what I have. But I also don't want to also create anxiety. Be like, we always got to keep churning,
yeah,
Uh, so that's definitely a hard one. I just want them to be able to kind of see that, mom and dad are continuing to get stronger, both physically, mentally, right, with all those kind of things. So it can feel like a lot, but I think that is a great way to do it. Um, and if
how
anyone
about
is
you?
not, what's that?
I was gonna say, how about you? Your turn on the question.
Yeah, I was trying to touch on it there with a little bit of, you know, how, like, what I want them to see. I was thinking of your list. I'd less want them to be able to, uh, itemize things to kind of finish throughout the day,
Yeah,
and more so see that bigger picture. I think I see this a lot too within the work that I end up doing. I think people, like, especially when it comes to like weight loss, like, I when I work with nutrition and I work with my patients like clinically, it's nice to see like a blood sugar thing or a cholesterol thing, because I think people just automatically like walk into that knowing it's not going to happen like, overnight, to kind of fix some of those challenges there. Even like a GI distress kind of thing or whatever it's going to be. People kind of give it a longer term, just more time. I think when it comes to things like body composition or like weight loss or something like that, I think everyone wants it like faster. and it becomes such a hard thing. And then people are kind of like checking these things off, and you see people kind of get into these all or nothing mentalities. And then kind of like what I end up calling, I just call it the fuck it's, right? Where it's like, well, one weekend didn't work and all of a sudden they're done.
Yeah.
And so I wouldn't want my kids to have this short-term acute mentality. I want them to realize that like on a larger timeline, all of us can be successful, right? But the
Yeah.
fact that we place these expectations to fit in such a small window of time, that's what really ends up being failure, right? We create that failure by giving us these expectations that are immovable, but I think that are just like not practical for what the real world really brings them. So I think having that longer list is a great thing. I love to see that that's something that you're definitely doing, and I want that too.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been good, and I like what you're saying, like just the long-term view of, you know, basically like 1% change, like just
Hmm.
got a little bit better this year than I was last year. And last year a little bit better than the year before. Um, and the other thing is like I get to define like what better is. Um, I get to define what, it's just between me and me. Like the list at the end of the day, like I could just check it all off and like not post it and no one would know, or I could just stop doing it. I could lie to myself, could not lie to myself. So just there's just a lot that goes into that, and it's a
Yeah.
lot of it's just a big practice on self-awareness, getting to know yourself a little better. And I want that for them. Like I want them to, look inward more than they look outward at other people. It's
Hmm.
giving me a practice of just being more in my head thinking about myself than like judging and looking at others. And I definitely don't want, I've done that way too much in my life. I think I've admitted that here, and that's another thing that it's not on the list, but it's like another thing that I'm working on is not being so judgmental of other people.
That's great, man. I would never think that you are judgmental that way. Although I think internally we do some judging, but it's what we actually say, on the outside. I think the other day I definitely caught myself, I think, telling my oldest to read. You got to read, you got to do this, right? Kind of make sure that she's doing something to kind of help her in school, but also just, do something different. She's so impressionable and she loves to be with friends. And it's
Hmm.
something where I'm like, I don't want your friends to define who you are as much as you define who you are and then bring that into your friendships. And so I'm telling her, you got to read, you got to read, like pick up that book over there. It's something to do right now. And we've also told her like, do some art, do this, whatever. But reading has been the one thing that we've been pushing her more to do. But the thing is, I'm not opening up a book enough to show her because it's not something, I got to be honest, I don't enjoy picking up a book and reading and getting into it. But I've also realized the solution. I'm going to get there. But it was something I'm like, I can't keep telling her this and then, not modeling it. So, there was a time where I was trying to, I think there was a moment where I was trying to read whatever month that was. We were trying to read kind of like 2 books a month or whatever. It was definitely helpful, but I know that I have to do a little bit more. And I think I've figured out a solution, which is definitely good. But regardless, that's something I have to do to kind of model myself. And, if I can walk into a gratitude thing for a second, I think that, the gratitude I get from these moments and these like a little bit of readings, sometimes it feels like a page is just enough for me,
Yeah.
just to read a day. But I think just grateful that that these small opportunities are kind of where I can definitely push myself to, be that better version of myself as a dad, whatever. But it's not just like for my kids, it's for me too. So it's this like continued cycle, which is definitely huge. But my thought has recently been that I feel like I'm always working on self-help, self-development, and all these kind of things too. I just need fiction. I need to get excited again about reading. That's
Mm,
something I've been really struggling to do. So my goal, I think, lately has been to past a week lately, maybe the past even 5 days. I've been doing a little bit more looking into and research on like fiction and trying to figure out what can have me escape a little bit from
yeah.
from the real world, if anything. And I did even find myself looking at, it wasn't like self-help, self-development, but a lot of the books that I was looking at was like, looking at books that really talk about the male psyche and, men going through something and like growth and stuff like that. So it's like secretly I'm still trying to find something to teach me how to grow. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, it's almost, I just need this like fantasy world completely, but that's been my goal. So maybe I have to ask you to hold me a little bit accountable to that. That's going to be important, because I really want to make sure that
That's
I'm
funny.
trying to do it, which isn't, I mean, it isn't bad. But there was a recent book. It was called, where is it? It's called Bearskin, and it was really cool. It was this guy who, he had to escape into like the Appalachian Mountains, and he did, and he got like caught up, and apparently like there were some like secret agents trying to find him somewhere, but he had to like run and teach him how to teach himself to survive like in the hills and stuff like that. It was really cool. But that
Yeah.
was the last like fantasy thing that I think I ended up really doing. But still, that is like somewhat of a self-development kind of, human struggle. What do they get out of this? So, maybe I have to ask for these like fantasy books, but that's my goal, to get more steps in throughout this next couple weeks, and then also listen to these books, if not read these books as I'm walking.
Yeah,
Hold me accountable.
I think the I think the book club model is like such a good idea. Like it has its positives and its negatives, because like you have to agree on a book. And sometimes, if you pick the book and it's not a hit, like, or it's not a hit for everybody, or it's like everything. Like most of the time everything doesn't hit with every person. Like you cook a meal and you cook a meal for 10 friends. A couple of people may not like it as much.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of the same thing with the book club. So like I'm not in a book club, but my wife is. And so I've been reading alone for years now, a couple years, I think 3 maybe. Um and I don't have a problem with it. But it's all self-help stuff. Um Never any fiction. So I don't know, like I can be help for you there, but I've been trying to get my wife to read, and she's like, "Get off me! Like, don't
Yeah.
like." There was one year where, or like within like the first year,
You
she was
mean
like,
like
"If you,"
self-developed you're trying to get her into?
yeah,
Because she's
I
already
was
in
like, I
that.
was
She's
like,
already in a book club, right?
no, she wasn't. She wasn't in anything. It was
Oh,
when I
oh,
started
oh.
reading, and so I was trying to do the thing where it was like, show not tell, right? So I did that, and then I would
Mm-hmm.
tell her like, "Oh, this is a really good book. This could, I think this could help you too. It's really helping me." And she's like, "Don't talk to me like that. Like, just stay away." And so she set her boundary, and like I crossed it many times, but like it, eventually, like when we got with this friend group, they had a book club, and they one of the books, the first books they invited her to read, because at first she was like, "I'm not going to read, but I'll come hang out with you guys." And they're like, "Yeah, that's fine." Uh, but the first book that they wanted to read was like a murder mystery, and she's
Yeah.
all into that kind of like genre and stuff like that on for TV shows. So she's like, "Okay, I'll get it on Audible and I'll listen to it." And she like cranked it all out in like a weekend, and she liked it a lot. So they got her
Okay.
hooked. And like, so that's what I'm saying is like, for you, like reaching out to people and trying to see if anyone like wants to join you, like if that helps you at all. Like me, I'm an alone reader. I'm okay with it.
Mm-hmm.
Or just to get recommendations, right?
I think it's, I was talking with um with just another dad about certain books, and I think the one thing that we were trying to figure out is, do we read the same book or not? I mean, this was Robbie, but we were trying to figure out, if we did have this like walking book club, is it something, should we read the same book or not? He was like, I already read those books, so I'm like, oh well, we don't have to read them again. But then the idea of, should we read different books and just talk about them? I was like, I don't know if I have enough accountability in that. I feel like I would need
Yeah.
a little bit more if that was the case. Um, Dom, I want to see if this is going to work really quickly. We had a question kind of popped up recently, and I wanted to see if it's something that we can talk about quickly. Let's see if this works.
Adam 2, what's your 20? Adam 2, what's your 20?
I got it. I don't know why that was the audio, but that's the audio. And that's the point. But this is the community couch. that we have to we're going to pull up right now because this is a really good question. It's a little bit timely. We gotta move this couch at some point. That's okay. But we have to figure out really quickly how this question can be answered. Let me know what you think about it. I'm going to pop this in the comments really quickly. I thought this was definitely good, and I, I'm curious because I think this plays into a little bit of what we want to make sure that we're getting with our kids here. But I'm gonna put this in the chat, and I'd love to see if anyone in the community or just rather that we're answering this for someone. I don't even know if this is a person I really know, but they did ask the question without me knowing exactly what their story was and stuff like that. But when this is coming up, this was what they said. Just with so much negativity in the news, and I'm kind of like, is it negative for you or is it negative in general, right? So that was kind of something that I was kind of thinking about there. But with so much negativity in the news, how can I model optimism and resilience for my kids while still staying informed about what's happening in the world? I had a thought on this, but Dom, you are our resident stoic here, and I thought it was really good for you to kind of let us know about this. But what are your thoughts about how to keep your kids informed with everything that's going on, especially with you with your older girls, without, I guess I'll get into my thoughts here, but without, I guess doing it in the best way.
So for me, like I kind of abstain from a lot of stuff, and I've always done it, so it's not a stoicism thing, but it is actually a stoicism thing to just, you're going to focus on what you control and what you don't control, right? So in the world, there's always going to be something like
Mm-hmm.
there's, whether it's political, whether it's going on in a different country, whether it's, this side versus that side. I mean, even football teams, like, it's just in people's natures to be divisive. And as far as like the TV and the news, we all know that, negative sells, like, so they're going to push that agenda all the time. That, there's it's very rare you see, like a happy, like it ended well kind of segment on the news.
Sure.
I think some people have tried to do it, but it doesn't stick. It doesn't get the likes, the hits, the views, or anything like that. So
Mm-hmm.
it's something that you have to deal with. You have to learn to deal with. It's something your kids are going to have to, and it's ever changing and ever growing. But I love the theories behind, what we see in like the Gary V Friends community, which is like you curate your feed.
Mm-hmm.
You have control over your algorithm. I mean, you don't, but like the more stuff you view in like the column of positivity, the more it's going to push you that way, in that direction. Like the more people you follow that put out that content versus the people that you follow that put out the opposite content. So if you stop watching those things and you stop liking them and you unfollow a couple people, you'll see a little bit less of it. But for me, I just kind of stay out of it. Like I'm not a news person. I never have been. I don't do politics. I don't watch sports. Like everything that's divisive, everything that's argumentative, like I'm just not that person.
Yeah, I am definitely not exactly like you in any way because I do like to I do get interested and I can get emotionally invested in certain things too. So it can become a little bit hard or not hard, but it can be challenging for me to give the simple headlines of kind of like the current events because it's really hard. There's so many things just floating around and whatever it is. But I think that if I could simplify things for my girls and then stay objective and be able to just talk about the things that are going on. Hey, you know what? A new president has just, taken power in the country, right? Without giving any type of, emotion or opinion, that just should be said, right? I kind of wish those headlines could be there. and then be able to let them know maybe where to find more about these things. It's like, oh, well, who is the person that's coming in to be the new president? Objectively, this is the person. How can I find out more about it? I'd like for them, because I'm just feeling more and more that any of these like pieces of news, I mean, we don't really watch the news anymore. Like we don't put the news on. Like, we don't really have cable. So it's something where I stay, where I actually think a lot of the news comes from is like over on X. Like things just happen so quick. But again, you have to understand where, like, who is saying this. Like, what is the what's the source that you're actually looking at? And like, I don't know, I was pretty open about this, that I was just trying to get monetized. There was some shit posting that was really going on. Man, is my feed just something that I have to really change around a little bit, because it is just like, it is far on one side of the political spectrum. And it's something where like I have to be careful about what I'm saying, because I'm like, man, what I see is ridiculous. And even like right now, like I commented on something and I didn't realize it was a parody account. And at the time, it's just like it went off. And so right now, I think there's like over 200 impressions on like seeing it and people being like, oh, it's ridiculous that you thought this was real.
You know what I think? I think maybe what the answer is you again. I don't know, because I don't know if the program's been led a one way or other. But have you tried just asking ChatGPT for the objective news of what's going on in the day?
Yeah,
Because sometimes what I feel like with like the news, and then now Twitter, X, and all social media, like how you said, like you're not watching the news anymore, but at least the news before was a little bit more long form, so you can get a little bit more information. The short form news, I always worry is like it's just the highlight reel of the bad. Like it's just the catchiest, sexiest thing, like
yeah.
because it's 30 seconds, it's 10 seconds. They want to get your view, and that's it. And
It,
then it's like you're left to go double click into that, but most people don't. They'll just swipe up and go to the next video.
yeah, it's like I think it's like reading the headlines, listening to the headlines, just like you're saying. I think swiping once you've kind of lost interest on it. But I think that since we have these attention spans that feel so short now, it's something where we're only paying attention to what we think is interesting, and then all of a sudden that becomes our news for the day. But it's also, the idea that anything that we were watching on the news previously, like there's only so much news you can fit in, and it really is just attention seeking. So it's like you do only get what they want to tell you. And so I think the way that we are gathering news and hearing about it, I think that's going to be one of the biggest, if I can call it a value or if I can call it a habit, whatever, but teaching my girls how to actually take an opinion in, or take the news in and then form not just like your one emotional opinion on it or what's in your head, but know how to take these objective thoughts and then form, I think a well-rounded opinion enough. I kind of think about that with like religion. Like I don't really know, like we're not a very religious family. I think our in-laws are and stuff, but I don't want to tell my girls to either, like I don't want to talk negatively about religion, and I also don't want to make sure that I'm going to indoctrinate them into one religion over another. Like just kind of have that overall sense of everything that the world has to offer. So it's kind of one of those, like, where do we go for this information? What do we do? I don't really want my girls to think, well, dad's opinion is going to be this, so when I ask him, how am I going to talk about it?
Yeah.
That's my thought.
And I
It's a
think
tough
my
one.
only other answer to this question, and like, to look at the question even more, is like you model optimism and resilience in your kids while staying informed about the world, is like you look to history, right? So like whatever's going on right now, we've been through as a society, like as a human race, we've been
Mm-hmm.
through stuff just as bad, or just as good, if you want to look on the other side of it. And like we're all still here. So like you look at what you have, you look at what your kids have, and you get like that gratitude and appreciation for what's in the world that's beautiful. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like, yeah, we had a pandemic a couple years ago. We had LA just had a roaring fire. We've had earthquakes countries have had tsunamis, floods, blackouts, all these things, and it's like it's on the news because it needs to be reported and people need to watch something. But at the end of the day, like, you have your family, you have your friends, you get to go play basketball at the park because you have a day off for MLK Day. Um, you can teach them about MLK, like the reason for that day
Hmm.
is a pretty gnarly thing that happened a long time ago, uh, and we got through it for the most part. That's
Yeah,
resilience right there.
I almost feel like in this question, is it more important to be optimistic in how you're modeling all of this and talking about it, or is it more important to be, I think, if maybe that resilience side is a little bit more important, so that you can let them know that, like, yeah, everything isn't going to be flowers and rainbows. It's not always going to be positive, but that's also how the world is going to work, right? If we kind of spin it and just be optimistic about everything. Well, I mean, obviously be optimistic, right? Coming out of it, it's like, okay, it's not going to affect us right now, or whatever. I don't know. But I think the idea there is like, yeah, let's not paint a picture of this always being, fair, and make sure that, bad stuff happens. Like, people just
Hmm.
lost their homes in LA. It's like, that's not a nice thing. Will they be okay in the end? They'll be okay. Will it be hard? It's going to be hard, but it's really unfair as well, as we kind of think about some of those things happening. So, good question, though. I feel like it had a little bit more behind it than I was definitely thinking about. But
Yeah.
it's also making me realize I want to be even more uh, objective, and making sure that my girls know that I'm open to talking, and not just about my own opinion, but hearing their question and hearing them, and being a lot more curious. Again, curiosity. I feel like as I get older, the curiosity definitely leads to the wisdom that we really want to be able to share with our kids. So,
Yep.
well, that was longer than I thought. We're at 39 minutes. A little bit of a longer morning. That's definitely good, though. All
Yeah.
right, Tom. Are you going on a walk after this?
I could hear the wind. It is just terrorizing. So I'm really
Okay.
just going to aim to get those trash cans in a good place. I don't know that I'll go for a walk, but I might.
Got it. Well, keep me. I'm gonna ask you to keep me. Ask about it. You don't have to keep me accountable to this, but my
For
goal is to
books.
make sure that I'm starting one of these books, that it's also fiction enough where I'm not secretly trying to gain something from these books. So I want you to ask me, Ryan, what was the book you decided on? Are you listening or reading to it? So that's what I'm gonna do.
Gotcha.
All right.
We'll do,
Thanks,
buddy.
man. I appreciate
Uh-huh.
that. All right. Well, have a good morning, guys.
Have a good
We will
morning.
see you tomorrow. Take care, guys. Bye.